Good morning and welcome to the Marysville Tulalip Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum number 3. Today's forum will be covering the 38th District House of Representatives Position 1 race with incumbent Emily Wicks and candidate Bert Johnson. Serving as today's moderator is Peter Rudolf, a business attorney at Galloway Law. He is also on our Government Affairs Committee and currently serves as an ongoing respected board member as our legal counsel. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Jessica, and good morning. In each race, we will begin with a 2-minute opening statement by each candidate. To maintain the Chamber's reputation of impartiality, the candidate to speak first for each race was chosen by coin flip prior to the start of today's forum. Following opening statements, our candidates will be asked a series of questions developed by our Government Affairs Committee. Alternating first response positions, each candidate will be given a 2-minute response period to the question posed. In the second segment, our candidates will pose their own question to their opponent. In this segment, each candidate will have 1 minute to pose their question and their challenger will have 1 minute to respond. In helping our candidates track their response times, we will signal when the candidates have reached the 1 minute and 30-second remaining marks, as well as when their time is up. I am pleased to introduce candidates for the race for 38th Legislative District seat, House of Representatives Position 1. Emily Wicks, running as a Democrat, versus Bert Johnson, running as a Republican. We move on to opening statements. You'll each have 2 minutes for your response. Ms. Wicks, you get to go first.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today and for the work to make this happen. My only complaint is that we don't get to enjoy the best bacon in Snohomish County at the Business Before Hours event. I sure miss those. I'm State Representative Emily Wicks, and I was born and raised in the 38th Legislative District. The communities of Marysville, Tulalip, and Everett have defined me, as well as my experiences and relationships I've built across the state of Washington throughout my youth and career. I attended Marysville-Pilchuck High School and had the great opportunity to earn bachelor's degrees in public relations and political science from Washington State University. Go Cougs. I've had the privilege of working on local and statewide campaigns, and I am also a longtime communications professional. I've worked on everything from wastewater and trail projects to clean technology, healthcare, and life sciences. I've also researched, coordinated, and helped pass legislation when I worked in Olympia for then State Representative Cyrus Habib. And I had my own welcome back Cotter moment when I went to work for the Marysville School District. Since then, I started a small business with the long-term goal of building The Core, a co-working, retail, and membership organization that prioritizes the needs of women and their families and works to foster a thriving economy here in the district. Snohomish County is my home, and it's where I've chosen to invest my time and efforts to help create a better quality of life for all. I have been active in local nonprofits like the Marysville School District Foundation, YMCA, and Cocoon House, and I have deep connections to community members, local leaders, and those working hard to keep our region moving. In my roles, I've developed and carried out public involvement and communications plans, built relationships with stakeholders across the region and state, navigated the legislative process, and worked both publicly and behind the scenes to move projects and priorities forward. I'm already doing the work and carrying the torch for our communities in Olympia. I've been identifying ways to fix our education system, bring more investments to our region, make sure all our people are heard, and that they can build resilience and recover. My work in the school district has highlighted a need to adapt and improve our education system and meet people where they are, ensuring that all of our children and their families have an equal chance of success. Thank you for having me here today. I welcome both your questions and insights.
Thank you, Emily. Mr. Johnson, your opening statement. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me out here today. I appreciate it. I am Bert Johnson. I am running in the 38th District for Position 1. I was born in Everett and raised my entire life here in the Snohomish County area. And for a little fun fact, I like to throw this out there. This is the 8th different decade I have lived in Snohomish County. So I graduated from Mount Lake Terrace High School. I have 2 sons that I raised on my own. I've been a small business owner in Snohomish County since 1980. I look forward to serving the community of Marysville, Tulalip, and Everett, and I pause it at that point there.
Well, thank you very much for your opening statements. Our first question this morning is, What matters most to you going into this next legislative session? And how will these interests affect the budget session? Bert Johnson, you get to answer first.
So my priorities are going to be government accountability, fiscal responsibility, vocational education, and the homelessness and drug abuse that goes along with that. As for the budget, I don't have a good answer for you on that today because I have not studied that budget. I hear the new budget just did come out recently, and there is an over budget of $4 billion, I believe is how it was written out, if I have my facts correctly. So on the government accountability, what I look at is there are many things that have happened out here recently. To give an example, $30 car tabs that we voted on. Our state legislators overturned that, and the voices of the people were not heard. We lost our federal revenues on the Washington state hospitals. We said no to a carbon tax, and again, we said no to the explicit sex education mandate, and again, that's been brought back in too. We've wasted millions of dollars on the ESD scam. So what I want to see is government accountability, and I want to be able to manage our government the way small businesses are managed today. So if we can't manage ourselves, we have a big problem, and we do have a big problem. Vocational education is a big priority for me. Snow Isle is an awesome facility that's brought into Snohomish County. And with that, we need to expand that. Back when I was in high school, we had the ability to learn a vocational education and step right out into the job market. Today, only the top students get to go to Snow Isle, and the remainder are left a little bit behind on that. So we need to bring that back into our education system. As for the homelessness and drug abuse, we're going to bring that up here in just a little bit and talk further into that depth.
Thank you. Emily Wicks, your answer to priorities moving into this legislative session. You are on mute. Yep.
Sorry. So my priorities include a more equitable education system, improved healthcare delivery, accessible public transit, and an economic recovery package that prioritizes our families, workers, local businesses, and underserved communities. A quality regional and local transportation system is necessary for providing opportunities for all. It's about our health and lowering our dependence on fossil fuels by investing in transit and creating walkable, connected communities with access to health clinics and pharmacies. It's about our economy and the ability of our residents to efficiently and financially move around their communities and regions so they may make purchases, support businesses, maintain their health, and bolster the economy. With regard to healthcare, there are still far too many Washingtonians that do not have adequate, affordable healthcare. So I'm committed to strengthening our state, regional, and local public health delivery system, including mental health, which is vastly underserved. I also want to address education equity and inequities between districts. I noticed that one of your priorities was to adopt a capital budget and advance a constitutional amendment to allow school bond issues to be approved with a simple majority vote of the people, and we share that same goal. Our schools are microcosms of our society and play a huge role in the economic success of our communities. And when we invest in our students and their families, we are investing in all aspects of our community that help it thrive. A strong workforce, healthy residents, reduction in crime, and overall quality of life. And when it comes to the budget, I'm going to be looking at every decision that we make, of whether it be removing a tax loophole, adding additional revenue, or making cuts with an eye toward how it affects our state budget and our people long term. We know that everything is interconnected, and that simply making cuts in the name of austerity can put us in a world full of hurt long term. Washington state has one of the most regressive tax structures in the country, where those who make the most money are contributing the smallest percentage. I want to work really hard to make sure that we are giving equal treatment to every decision that we make. And we are now in the black for just 2020 with the budget, but we still have a $1 billion budget shortfall. So we need to work on that, and we need to make some really serious decisions when we return to Olympia in January. Sorry.
Thank you, Emily. I'm glad you brought up education, because it segues into the next question, and I'm going to stick with you. What is your opinion on the matter of reopening from the COVID-19 lockdown? And what will you do to support and lessen the impact upon businesses and families facing unprecedented educational challenges due to this crisis? Emily, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, first of all, with regard to our schools open, we are approaching a time where, the flu is coming as well, and it might exacerbate some of the problems that we're dealing with from COVID-19. There's a lot of parents that are at a point where they really cannot be working from home and educating their children. This is stressing out our teachers as well. What I'm in favor of right now is a slow process to go back to school. So starting with our more vulnerable students, our special needs students that are having a really hard time transitioning. And there's been data that talks about K through 12 students, K through third grade students being able to come back and are less likely to contract the virus. So we really need to move into that, and I'm hoping a lot of districts do, but we really need to do that safely and make sure that we're masking up. And it's also, unfortunate some of these students are not getting are going to be coming to a classroom that doesn't feel the same as a school setting does. And so we need to keep that in mind as well. I know a lot of our high school students are very worried about going back, and while they want to see their friends and they want to do this, they're just very challenged, and it puts those that are immunocompromised in a bad position. So as we, I was looking at that. So getting our families the resources, tech training, broadband services, we've seen how difficult that has been for families that have multiple children and are online at different times of the day or all day long. And so that's creating problems. So we need to get those families the resources. And for those who need to come in person, we need to make sure that they get that resource as well, so that there's these choices that are out there. But we don't want people to sacrifice their health or put themselves at risk or their children at risk to do that. So it's going to be a different solution for everyone. And I look forward to working with parents and families, as I have been, to really develop more solutions. Thanks.
And Bert, your opportunity to answer a question about the COVID-19 and impact on families for education.
So I just noticed just this week that the Snohomish School District, even though that's not in our precinct area here or our district, has decided to open up K through second grade starting on October 26th. I have spoken with quite a few parents, and I've spoken with one particular educator, and they are finding it very, very difficult for students to be able to learn online. Their attention span seems to be falling away rather quickly. Where in a classroom setting, you're going to have your educator out front with everybody and their peers out there also. So right now, what ends up happening is when the attention is brought to one student online, the rest of the students really are not engaged. So it's very hard for these students to engage and to further their education. As the one parent told me, they're just lost. I mean, they're off gazing around, they're at home. So I do think that we do need to move forward quickly to reopen our school systems totally to all class levels. When it comes with the COVID factor, I agree there's a possibility of some outbreaks that happen out there, but the younger students or younger people in themselves have a less degree, is what we've been finding or learning, of contracting COVID versus the older folks in our community. From there, again, I'm going to stress a little bit back into the vocational education. We're losing that back because students aren't out there to be able to learn a trade. And I'm talking about our high school students right now. They are sitting at home and not able to learn a good trade once they be able to move on and out of school.
Our next question is about economic development priorities for the 38th district. What do you perceive as the district's economic priorities, and how will those priorities affect your involvement in this next budgeting legislative session? And we return to Bert to go first on this one.
So that's a tough one right now, especially when the COVID session going on. So we have so many businesses, one of my own, that we're not able to open up fully. So our development is down. Rates, I don't have the exact numbers, but we're still pretty high. There are a lot of situations that are going to be happening. If we just noticed on the news recently, Boeing has decided to move their complete 787, I believe, to South Carolina. We knew that was going to be coming, and our past governments didn't step up to the plate. Let's go with the example of the headquarters for Boeing. So when they didn't take their opportunity of saying, hey, we're going to move out of town, we didn't step up to prevent that and offer correct guidance to keep them here in the area. They're gone. They did the same thing with the South Carolina plant. So we are going to have some issues when it comes up to economic development coming forward here. We're going to have a lot of jobs that are just totally lost, gone. We're going to have to figure out thoughtful ways to bring back and incentivize businesses to get creative again and start bringing back into our community the people that are out there. And that will tie into us. So what I need to do is be able to have programs out there that can help these people and re-educate them, clean them up, and bring them back in to be productive members of our society.
And economic development question to you, Emily.
Thank you. Well, I believe in order to bolster our economy, we need to recognize the connection a strong economy and opportunities for economic development have with creating connected communities, supporting our schools and students, and ensuring we have adequate housing resources. As a new member of the Transportation Committee, I plan to focus on investing in projects that create jobs and wages that help people contribute. I'm passionate about developing community workforce agreements that help us prioritize projects that have a positive impact on our local construction workers, our environment and health, and projects that move people in a way that gives them their time back. And our businesses need support and guidance. This is a unique time in our history, and there was really no precedent that we could look to for how to address a pandemic in the 21st century. And we need to listen to the needs of our small businesses and continually adapt our rules and requirements and notification structure while protecting public health. And with our state being heavily dependent on a sales tax, we need to ensure that our people have the opportunities and resources to invest back in the economy. We've seen from the most recent revenue forecast that stimulating our economy through grants and financial support for individuals and small businesses during this pandemic has brought us into the black for 2020. And it's because when more people are able to contribute to creating thriving businesses and industries, we bolster our state and local budgets so we can reinvest into building our economy back up. So I also believe we need to continue efforts to train the next generation. Connecting our regional industries with students now will provide jobs, bolster our industries, and ultimately drive more businesses to Washington State. And I see many spaces in Marysville that are ripe for sustainable, thoughtful development. And I've been exploring those opportunities that exist in Marysville's downtown core that can support a growing economy and build a better quality of life for all those who call our location home. So I continue to work on that, and we continue to address this, but Marysville is just such a wonderful place, and I love the communities of Everett, and I think that we're ripe for some more opportunities to come in here, and I'm going to be working with local governments and chambers of commerce to make that happen.
Thank you both. Now we move on to your opportunity to ask questions of each other. Each one of you will get to ask one question. Take 1 minute to do so, and then the other will answer the question posed by your opponent, and then move right into asking your question of your opponent, and we'll have 1 minute for answers as well. Emily, you start by asking Bert a question.
Hi, Bert. One portion of the Chamber's 2020 legislative priorities is to protect commitments from the 2015 Connecting Washington Revenue Package, which is primarily funded by a gas tax. Transportation revenue is down nearly $1 billion for the 2019-2021 biennium alone due to I-976 and COVID-19 impacts. Your platform protests gas taxes and taxes in general. So in lieu of a gas tax, how would you plan on keeping these types of economic driving transit and transportation projects funded?
Thank you, Emily. Number one, I do believe that we've fallen. A few years back, we were number 3 in the nation on gas tax. I think we're down to number 7 today. So we have plenty of revenue generated once we do get back to work. Right now, we're not driving as much as we can see out there on our roads. It's pretty light on traffic and most days out there. So that revenue will increase itself as we get moving along. I think one of the questions that will be asked is, and what I think is going to be proposed is, now that we're sitting down a little bit on revenue, I think the Democrats, yourself, are going to be looking at trying to bring back in a tax to our ability to tax the people on a federal income tax, we're going to come back and try and put in a state income tax. And I'm totally opposed to that because there are other revenues we can look at. Again, we need to be fiscally responsible out there, and we got to have a government accountability on managing our budget, managing it and run it just like a small business. If you don't have it, you got to find a way to cut it. So Emily, my question for you will be this. With all the peaceful protests that have occurred recently, they seem to be turned into anarchist rioting and looting businesses, damaging properties, and there has actually been loss of life. They look to be heading north from the Seattle area. Are you going to fully fund our police and sheriff's department, and how are you going to protect our citizens in the 38th district in these situations and prevent them from happening here at home?
Well, thanks for that question, Bert. I've been fortunate enough to go on 2 ride-alongs with the Marysville Police Department, and I've met with the Everett Police Chief, Dan Templeman. The current ratio of officers to population in Marysville is one of the lowest in the state and country, and this is putting a lot of undue burdens on our local officers, creating stress, affecting the culture, and straining our budgets. I look more to the idea of being innovative in how we deal with crime and making investments in crime reduction and looking at our different police departments different. To reduce crime, we need to look at the 911 calls we are getting and find ways through social services to reduce the type of activities that our officers are responding to. In most instances, people need mental health supports, substance use treatment, or basic resources like food and shelter. And I want us to look at where our dollars are spent and determine if we're neglecting to meet the needs of our community at the front end, which is costing us on the back end and creating these tensions. Snohomish County spends 75% of its budget on law and justice, both addressing crime in the justice system, or addressing crime and in the justice system, yet just 1% on social services. And our county social services team and nonprofits are doing a lot of positive things with very little. But imagine if we raise the amount dedicated to social services by even just 1%. What a huge difference that would make long term. Thank you.
Thank you both for those very relevant questions and quality responses. We would like to offer each one of you a 2-minute closing statement. Bert, why don't you go first?
So I look forward to serving our community in the 38th district. I am not a career politician. I did not go to school to be I have been a small businessman for decades out here in Snohomish County. I look forward to being able to take my abilities that I have learned as a business person down to Olympia and be able to move those right into the system here. There is no reason for us to be raising taxes. We just need to be responsible and we generate and bring those funds into play and where we allocate them. There's just so much waste that happens out there. We need to be cautious, we need to be careful, and we need to think things through. Look at all the cost overruns that have happened out there. The light rail that's out there right now, holy smokes. I mean, we're gonna be paying for that for decades. I mean, our generations are gonna happen out there that they're gonna be just burdened with this system out there. So again, I look forward to serving the community of the 38th LD, and I'm going to do an awesome job. I am fully gonna fund the police departments and I support the blue.
Thank you. Emily, would you like to make a closing statement?
Sure. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. In the communities of the 38th Legislative District and beyond, I am known for my determination, dedication, as well as my support for our children, families, local businesses, and underserved communities. My accomplishments and my reputation has led to nearly 100 organizational and individual endorsements, including my fellow 38th District Representative, Senator June Robinson, Representative Mike Sells, and a variety of notable education, business, labor, and conservation organizations. I will fight to lift up our economy, support local governments, give voice to the underrepresented, and alleviate the stress of those who are disenfranchised. I'm committed to bringing all thoughts and ideas to the table to make decisions that positively impact those who live here and ensure that no one in our community feels powerless. We must all begin to see positive change and intentional decision-making as we navigate a very complicated system together. I am excited to work with the Greater Marysville Chamber of Commerce and its members to lift up our community and create a thriving economy here in the 38th. Thank you so much for putting this on today.
Thank you both very much for your attendance at our virtual forum today. Our goal today was to present a fair and impartial format that will aid citizens in their decision-making process. Your vote is extremely important. Weigh your choices carefully, and please remember to vote on or before November 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter, and a thank you to our candidates. Best of luck to both of you. To our Government Affairs Committee, we thank you on the behalf of the Chamber and the businesses in the Marysville and Tulalip areas. Thank you to 564 IT for your video editing and getting it onto the Chamber's YouTube channel. And thank you to our moderator, Peter Rudolf. Our upcoming events are Candidates Forum number 4 will be tomorrow at 9 a.m. covering the race for Legislative District 44 State Representative Position number 1 with candidates John Lovick and John Kartak. Thank you for coming and have a great day.